Week 5 Stats Report. Welcome to Talking Giants. My name is Justin Penik, and if you're clicking on this video, you know how bad it is. You know it. I don't need to tell you. But right now, as a fan, I'm feeling kind of empty. That Dallas game where a lot of our favorite players went down, and I don't exactly know the timetable of Daniel Jones. I mean, that crazy son of a bitch, he may be back this Sunday against the Rams. I kind of hope he's not. Andrew Thomas, is he going to play? Saquon Barkley's out for a few weeks. Kenny Galladay's out for 1 to 2 weeks. And even being disappointed on the defensive side of the ball with a lot of players that we like over there, and none of them, just nobody is performing above their expectation on the defensive side of the ball besides Austin Johnson, I guess. But, it's disappointing, where last year was a theme of let's root for players, let's root for the players that we like, let's get more invested in this team because we believe in it. And then this year, blah, obviously. So, stats report this week, it's going to be a little different, going to be shorter on the offense, going to be longer on the defense, because we kind of have to wait and see if there's going to be like a new look Giants offense that's going to be rolling out against Atlanta. Is that going to be the offense that we're going to see for a few weeks? Because Galladay, Jones, Barkley, they all could possibly be out for some sort of extended period of time. But what we will talk about on the offense side of the ball is Kadarius Toney. And that is going to be really the only thing that we talk about on the offense side of the ball. Because Kadarius Toney, he's bringing you the explosive play report this week. He is bringing it to you. Every single 20-plus yard play from this past Sunday against Cowboys included Kadarius Toney. And that is bad in some areas, but also it's really, really good because Kadarius Toney took over the game and he looked like a dude. He looked like a really good dude. And it makes us very, very excited. Makes me very excited. He is the thing to be excited about right now if you are a Giants fan. So let's talk about some yards after the catch, because I like to talk about my yards after the catch. Kadarius Toney, he ranks 8th in the NFL in yards after the catch per reception right now, out of all wide receivers and tight ends, with at least 13 targets. And he has 8.5 yards after the catch per reception this year. So really, through the last 3 games. So it was the Falcon game, it was the New Orleans game, Saints game, and it was the Cowboy game. He has averaged over 8 yards after the catch per reception 3 weeks in a row. I know Atlanta, he had limited usage, but still, it's fun to see where basically for the first 18, 19 games of this Jason Garrett era, yards after the catch was just non-existent. It was nothing that his scheme really did to set guys up in a positive area and a positive spot to get yards after the catch, but also, so this is a little credence to if you were saying last year, well, Jason Garrett doesn't have the personnel. He doesn't have the personnel to really maximize really anything on his offense. This is where, those people, you kind of get some brownie points, because you look at what Kadarius Toney can do just because of his individual effort and, his ability to break tackles. But he had 5 missed tackles against New Orleans. I think he had 3 this past week against Dallas per PFF missed tackles forced. So that's individual effort and that's individual play, where it's Kadarius Toney playing ball. It's playing backyard ball. He's playing grown man ball. Where when Kenny Galladay runs over a dude, right, that's also grown man ball, but it looks a little different when Kadarius Toney jukes a guy out. So that is where, you kind of get some brownie points last year if you were saying, well, Jason Garrett didn't have the personnel, even though it was the same from 2019 to 2020, and Pat Shurmur did okay with it. So, there's balance to both sides, and it's really, really fun that Kadarius Toney is doing what he's doing with the ball in his hands. And his expected yards after the catch per reception is 5.6. So overall, yards after the catch per reception over expected. You know how we talk about completion percentage over expected, CPOE? Yards after the catch per reception over expected is plus 2.9. And why you want that over expected number to be positive is because sometimes scheme, wide receiver separation, certain things that happen before a wide receiver catches the ball, there are certain things a wide receiver can do or a scheme can do to set a player up into a positive situation of getting yards after the catch. So there's next-gen metrics that are able to calculate, well, what is a player expected to get based on defender proximity, how far away from the sideline is he, did he catch the ball in the middle of the field, et cetera, et cetera. What is a wide receiver kind of expected to do with the ball in his hands after he catches it? It is good. It is a positive sign that Kadarius Toney is doing more than what he is quote-unquote expected to do, because that is his individual performance that is showing. So the yards after the catch metrics are really, really impressive, and why it's even more impressive is that Kadarius Toney is doing this all within the intermediate part of the field. He's catching the ball within 1 to 9 yards, and frankly, why that's important and why I'm highlighting it right now. That's where Sterling Shepard has been very, very productive with Daniel Jones throughout his Giants tenure. And odds are, Sterling Shepard may be a cap casualty this offseason. So if Kadarius Toney can be that slot guy that catches the ball in the intermediate part of the field, and also catch the ball in the intermediate part of the field and break some tackles, turn those into explosive plays. I mean, the more explosive plays you can have as an offense, the better. I'm never gonna complain about a possession wide receiver that may have a high catch rate that can break some tackles and move the chains consistently. I'm never gonna complain about a guy and not having where's that guy that gets the nine yards per catch on the team? If Kadarius Toney can be that intermediate option for us, plus also constantly moving the chains and breaking some tackles, I am a huge, huge fan of that. There's obviously some areas where he does need to improve if he really wants to move up to that kind of Sterling Shepard reliability. He's got to continue to show it on a week-by-week basis, but that's a really, really good sign that he has done most of his work between that 1 to 9 yard range, plus he's creating those explosive plays, breaking tackles, getting the yards after the catch, etc., etc. So even when you compare Kadarius Toney to some of the other rookie wide receivers as well, here's like my power rankings. I have Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore, Jalen Waddle, and then Terrace Marshall's there too. I have him down there, and then a lot of the guys that haven't really been involved: Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Eskridge, and Atwell are also there too. But I do put Kadarius Toney third in front of Rondale Moore, Jalen Waddle. It was pretty close between Toney and Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore is solid with the ball in his hands too in terms of yards after the catch per reception. But Moore's been getting more of the volume as the season's gone on, and Toney has had a very impressive 2-week stretch where it could change. I could put Moore back up, but Toney's had a very, very impressive 2-week stretch when he has actually been used. Waddle, I feel like, has been the beneficiary of getting some decent volume. He's also been hurt by not having good QB play. But neither here nor there, Toney's been super, super impressive through the 2 weeks he's been used. How is it going to differ when now teams know about him? Now, when he's going to be out there a little bit more, he may be the number one option this next weekend without Kenny Golladay. Sterling Shepard may be back, Darius Slayton may be back, so he's going to be like that number one target, the guys that defenses are going to be most afraid of. How is he going to be productive? How will he find a way to be productive? So that's Kadarius Toney. Super, super fun. Love it. Like it a lot. All right, so let's move to the defense after fanboying over Kadarius Toney. So what I'm showing right now to kind of start off is look at how the Giants are using two high safeties. That's what this graph basically means. You see Vic Fangio of the Broncos and also Brandon Staley of the Chargers. Those two coaches and those two kind of defensive minds, they like to use the two high system. And that's what the Giants have kind of moved to this year after using a lot of single high safety. Then they would run cover 3 with that single high safety. So they're doing something different this year. They are doing something different schematically this year. And it's leading to similar results in some areas of the defense, but in major areas, it is leading to vastly different results. So let's compare the explosive play rate from 2020 to 2021 through 5 weeks for this Giants defense. So when I say 2020, I'm comparing it through weeks 1 through 5 last year, just so we have kind of like an even level playing field. And I said in the past that, hey, the Giants defense, they're bad, but they're not allowing the explosive play. Well, I think that's starting to kind of creep up on them a little bit. And by the way, for these rankings, 1 is best in terms of not allowing explosive plays, and then 32 is worst in terms of allowing a lot of explosive plays. So in 2020, the Giants were 12th in explosive run rate, and they were 7th in explosive pass rate, which by the time the season ended, the Giants defense last year was 3rd best in the National Football League at prevented the explosive pass play. By the time weeks 1 through 5 went down, they were the 7th best at not allowing the explosive pass play. In 2021, they're 15th in explosive run rate. So around the same as 2020, but they've allowed a lot more runs of 4 to 9 yards this year, which is a problem. And this year, they are 21st in explosive pass rate, which is the 12th most in the National Football League. So it's becoming a problem. This too high system is supposed to prevent the big pass play. It's supposed to give the corners, maybe kind of help where if they get beat down the field, then a safety is supposed to come over. I mean, I put that touchdown over CeeDee Lamb this past Sunday. I kind of put that a little bit more on Julian Love versus James Bradbury, because Julian Love has to get over. He's a safety who's playing center field that play. He has to kind of jet over to James Bradbury. Now, CeeDee Lamb's really, really good. Dak Prescott put a really good ball on it, and sometimes he can't beat it. But, at the end of the day, I mean, running this too high system is supposed to prevent the explosive pass play, and now it's becoming a problem where the Giants are not preventing the explosive pass play. So, let's do a little bit more of comparing certain stats and certain metrics to 2020. The Giants are 30th in pressure rate in the NFL this year. They were 10th in the NFL last year, which is kind of bizarre when you consider that the edge room is supposed to be more talented this year than it was last year. But they're bottom of the barrel. They're bottom of the barrel in getting pressure on the quarterback. Giants are 13th in blitz rate with 23.4%. Last year, they were 20th, even though their blitz rate was slightly higher with 26.9%. The Giants have allowed the 5th lowest average depth of target in the National Football League this year, the 2nd lowest in 2020. I find that to be very, very significant, because there are certain areas which this Giants defense where, pressure rate, sack rate, QB hits, they're dramatically worse. We all know the pass rush is a problem. But there are certain areas which you look at, and it's like, they're kind of similar. Like, they're kind of similar as to where they were last year. Average depth of target, they're still not allowing teams to throw the ball deep down the field on a consistent basis. But still, like, the Giants defense this year is really, really bad. And we'll get to maybe why that's getting that to, that approach of letting teams kind of dink and dunk. It's coming back to bite them a little bit. We'll talk about it in a little bit. The Giants this year rank 18th in yards after the catch. They ranked 20th in 2020, so that's about the same. They ranked 14th in pass deflections this year. Last year, they ranked 9th, so a little bit worse. I still think that my eye test tells me that guys like James Bradbury, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, those guys aren't coming up and making plays on the football like they did last year. I mean, that you're not going to change my mind off of that. But pass deflections are still relatively the same as last year in terms of their ranking. They are allowing the highest completion rate in the National Football League at 74%. Last year, they were 9th highest with 67.6% in 2020. So, I mean, that's a difference. That is a pretty substantial difference, especially when it's first in the NFL and you're the easiest team to complete a pass in the NFL. That is something. But still, the Giants' defense last year, they also allowed a high completion rate. So still, it's not that dramatically different. What is dramatically different, they have the 3rd least amount of tackles for loss in the National Football League. They had the 8th most last year. So, whether it's running the ball, coming up and making a play in the pass game, where it's a screen and you get a guy in the backfield, that kind of stuff flips a game script. It flips the game schedule for an offense. A negative play maybe versus just, a net positive or, a 2 or 3 yard gain in the run game. Getting a negative play impacts a drive, and the Giants just flat out haven't been able to do that. And again, I kind of put that on player performance, but also not putting that extra guy in the box, where if you're running too high, you're not putting that extra safety in the box or another linebacker in the box. That does impact definitely the game. So this is a big one. The percentage of drives ending in an offensive score, 49%. That is the 4th most in the NFL. Last year, 15th, with 41.5% in 2020, the percentage of drives ending in a score. I mean, that's big. That's huge. That is, 8%, almost a 10% difference of percentage of drives that are ending in a score for the Giants this year versus 2020. And really what it comes down to, in my opinion, is the Giants last year, when teams crossed the 50-yard line, or especially when teams got into the red zone, they would clamp down. The Giants this year, they allow a touchdown 63.2% of the time in the red zone versus 2020, they allowed a touchdown 50.8% of the time in the red zone. Last year, that was 2nd best in the NFL. That was 2nd best. There is a 13% difference of allowing touchdowns in the red zone this year versus last year, where they were 2nd best in the NFL. So really, this year and last year, the Giants defense, they're allowing drives to sustain themselves. They're allowing time of possession per drive. They're allowing yards per drive. But what it comes down to is that they're not clamping down in the red zone like they did. They're not. They're not clamping down. They're allowing explosive plays at a slightly higher rate than they were last year through 5 weeks, and that's resulting in bad play. It's resulting in bad play. And that's why still, when I look at, Patrick Graham, the average depth of target that this defense has allowed, and I still do want to put it on more or less the players, because the edge room is just nothing. And interceptions that have been in guys' hands, like James Bradbury, he had an interception in his hands this past week against Dallas. Logan Ryan, 2 against Atlanta. Adoree Jackson had 1 in his hands against Atlanta. So these guys are not making plays. So that's why I more or less put it a little bit more on the player and the player execution side of things, because so much of what the Giants defense has been allowing with the average depth of target and the yards per drive, so much of it is similar to last year. But still, it's just these little execution points that are causing so much more of a difference between red zone scores, points per drive, etc., etc. So, here's what it boils down to. QBs are holding on to the ball longer, and they're not getting pressure. Dak Prescott had, 2.81 seconds per throw. Giants are running too high more, which I think that's also what it boils down to. And James Bradbury isn't playing like a top 5 cornerback. That's what it boils down to. All right, last point I'm going to make is about this Giants rushing defense. And it has not been good. It has not been great. So here's the directional rushing overall for this Giants defense. You can see the graphic that I have on the screen right now. What's most significant about this is that you can see that usually, I would say teams 50 to 60, sometimes even like 65% of the time, unless you're the Cleveland Browns, unless you're a team that uses an outside zone scheme, teams are usually running up the middle of the guard, around that 50 to 65% of the time. You could see for the Giants, it's below 50%, and most notably, teams are running outside the tackles 30% of the time against us. I think that is very, very, very significant, because I think teams are recognizing that without Blake Martinez, and also without an edge presence that can really set the edge, Azeez shouldn't be relied on to set the edge. Lorenzo Carter has not been the same run defender that he was in years past. O'Shane Ximines is not a good run defender. So the strength of this team is their interior defensive line. At least, 3 guys are: Austin Johnson, Leonard Williams, and Dexter Lawrence. The strength of the team is on the interior, so teams are recognizing, well, if we just run away from him, we go outside the tackles, they don't necessarily have the athletes that can set the edge, and without Blake Martinez, they don't have somebody that consistently goes sideline to sideline to get their running back down. And especially, again, if you're not going to stack the box and if you're going to run 2 high safeties, those safeties have to come down and make plays. And that's why Logan Ryan, he's like 4th in the NFL in tackles right now. That's part of the reason why he has to come down and make so many plays, when guys like Jabril Peppers should be coming down in the box and he should be making those plays himself. So that's very, very significant that teams are recognizing that. Why are we going to run into the teeth of what this strength of what this defense is best at? We're going to run outside the tackles 30% of the time and be productive that way. So one more bad stat. Danny Shelton is really, really bad. Danny Shelton, really, really bad. You could see that when he's on the field, the team is allowing 6 yards per carry. Not good. Not good at all. When he is off the field, the team is allowing 3.72 yards per carry. Danny Shelton has been astronomically bad. So when you want to give the whole, we should have signed Dalvin, why did we let Dalvin go? Dalvin's loss is really impacting the team. Maybe it's not Dalvin. Maybe it's just Danny Shelton is a really, really bad player. He's a bad signing, even though a lot of people liked it at the time. I mean, I liked it, Bobby liked it, but he's been a really bad player. And he's huge, but he gets moved off the ball. And clearly, it's a huge difference when he's on the field. We're allowing 6 yards per carry. When he's off the field, we're allowing under 4, which that's exactly where you want to be. So don't play Danny Shelton. Play Austin Johnson more. Play David Moa. I'd rather see David Moa come up at this point. Raymond Johnson, I guess, even though he's a pass rusher, anybody but Danny Shelton, because it's really, really bad. All right, that's a stats report. Bad. Bad, not fun. Not good, not happy, as some people say. All right, we'll see you next week. Peace. Go Blue.